Hello everyone and welcome to the program Business Point on Global Television. I am Samuel Odi. So, looking at the Nigerian All-Share Index market, we witnessed a strict 4 days losing streak. But before the close of business yesterday, the Nigerian All-Share Index was able to recover a little. This came as a shock to a whole lot of individuals because of the fact that a lot of investors, had cold feet with the current situation, data, and then the whole saga going on between the NBS and then data being released, and actually the truthfulness of the data that has been released by the NBS was another factor that contributed to investors' decline in the Nigerian All-Share Index. But on a lighter note, we witnessed a bit of rebound from investors and then the stock markets, where Nigerian stock markets gained at 0.09% before the trading session closed yesterday. So that is something a little bit exciting for investors and every other person that trade with Nigerian stock markets. But let me bring you up to date with the current opening for today and then how the market ended yesterday. The Nigerian stock market experienced a slight recovery on January the 16th, 2025, with the All-Share Index raising by 87.11 points to close at 102,183.06 points. This marked a slight increase of 0.09% from the previous day's closure of 102,000 points. Breaking the 4-day streak of losses. This was very disturbing, but this current gain is a boost and a momentum for the market to continue the trajectory of gains. The trading volume increased by 8%. That was yesterday, reaching 472 million shares compared to 428 million shares traded the day before. Market capitalization edged up to 62.3 trillion naira, to a small increase from 62.2 trillion naira, maintaining a position above the 62 trillion naira threshold. Looking at this, the market summary closed and then opened today at 102,183.06 points. Previously, it closed at 102,095.95 points. Day change was at plus 0.09%. Year-to-date performance was at minus 0.72%. Volume traded was 472 million shares, and then the market capitalization was at 62.3 trillion naira. Now, with boost and confidence coming in back into the Nigerian stock market, we're expecting to see this bullish trend continues today, and there have been focus and projection that say the market is rebounding, and there's a high chance that the market is going to be closing on a bullish trend today, closing at around 103,000 points before the close of business today. So this is what we're expecting to see. This is the expectation for the Nigerian stock market as of today. So looking at the market opened today at 102,183.06 points. That is what the market opened at early hours of today, and then we're expected to see this bullish trajectory continue. And then what can help this trajectory continue? From what analysts and policymakers have said, they expected a whole massive high level of investors' momentum coming in and then getting investment going on. With all of that, if that does happen, we're expected to see a bit of increase. That's a bullish trend of amounting up to 103,000 points. Then the trajectory could continue like that come the following week. Looking at the fact that Naira is beginning to stabilize and there are other avenues, open policies in place for that is attracting more investors. So looking at all of those now, we're expected to see a significant increase and a bullish trend with the current ahead of the business day for today, basically looking at the All-Share Index. Now we're moving on, talking about Nigerian Naira and its stability. Now confidence is beginning to build as Nigeria finally finding its footing in the market. A year after an eye-watering slide against the dollar, the Naira is enjoying a well run of stability, and analysts expect it to last for a very reasonable amount of time. Nigeria's battered currency has lost a significance of 70% against the greenback since foreign exchange control were relaxed in the year 2023, including a step depreciation of 12 months ago. But its performance since December tells a different story, with the naira holding in a narrow range, roughly between 1,550 naira and 1,520 naira per dollar. With the recent development, it shows that naira is on a bullish trend, and maybe the naira will be able to settle at 1,500. Nigeria has raised dollar reserve, citing the $2.2 billion euro bond it sold on December the 2nd, 2024, while cautioning it remains vulnerable to price for crude oil. The naira slide was a deliberate result of relinquishing its long-standing fixed peg against the dollar after President Bola took office in May 2023. So looking at this now, the projection for 2025 by President Bola Tinubu is for inflation to be cut down to 15%. Currently now inflation is at 34.80%. So that is very, very disturbing. Now looking at naira now and then its stability, the president in his bill that is yet to be passed, his 2025 budget that is fully yet to be passed on by the Senate House. We are looking to see that from the projection that the naira will be able to stabilize at 1,500. Now, if this does happen, though a lot of policymakers and as well as financial and business analysts have argued that it's not feasible, but looking at the auction that happened, $2.2 billion for the real bond, and then it generated a whole lot of momentum for the Nigerian naira, and from December up to date, over a month now, we've seen the naira being stable at 1,550 naira to 1,520 naira. So in the official, that's for the official market, but in the black market, it's been traded at 1,660 naira, around 600, and as well as 1,620 naira. This has been the fluctuation within the sector in the black market. So if the naira gets to stabilize at 1,500 in this year 2025, this is just opening the floodgate of investors to come into Nigeria and invest. So the president and his office, they are doing everything within their power to be able to see that Nigerian naira gets stabilized as 1,500. So with this if we get to see this currency naira being stabilized at this range, then it tells so much of how inflation is also going to be cut down from 34.80% to around 15%, as I promised by President Bola Tinubu. But we've seen other persons argue differently, that yes, inflation is actually going to drop down, but not at the measure which President Bola Tinubu says is going to drop down. Some have said inflation is going to drop down to 27.5% come December 2025. So that has been the projection for the inflation of Nigeria come 2025. Then if that's is set to happen come 2025 for it to be, that means there are a whole lot of things that the president needs to do to counter what this projection is saying by economists and then policy analysts, for him to be able to see as to his budget and coming to stabilize at 15%. That is the inflation measures being stabilized at 15%. So we'll be keeping our fingers crossed and then looking at the policies that are being made or created at the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. All of them, those whole policies are things that a whole lot of Nigerians are paying so much attention to. Rebuilding of the economy too is also on the side. Nigerians are waiting, since it has been mentioned that come January 31st, the full implementation of the rebuilding of Nigerian economy is going to start, of the GDP. So we are expecting to see what that is going to yield. And then in the next stage of this conversation, we'll be talking about World Bank, where they made the mention of the fact that Nigerian GDP is expected to grow by 3.5%. But before we get into all of this conversation, the federal government plans to raise 1.8 trillion from bond markets in the first quarter of 2025. We'll be wondering how that would happen. But before we get right deep into the conversation, let's go on a quick break, and then when we return back, Business Point continues. Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bonds, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business.
Yes, and many thanks for staying with us. Before we went on that quick break, the federal government says they're looking to generate 1.8 trillion naira from Eurobond market in the first quarter of 2024. Now you'll be wondering what avenues are going to use to get this money now. The Eurobond market is the avenue now. What is the money going to be used for? I know that's the next question. The federal government is planning to raise 1.8 trillion from the bond market in the first quarter of 2025. According to the Debt Management Office, the proposed assurance detailed in the newly released FGN bond insurance calendar include a mix of reopened and new bonds spread across 3 monthly auctions solicited for January, February, and of the month of March 2025. This funding effort forms part of the government's strategy to address a projected budget deficit of 13.8 trillion naira in the year 2025, equivalent to 2.87% of the country's gross domestic product. The bond will serve as a key tool for financing critical infrastructure and tackling fiscal gaps. The government plans to offer between 150 billion naira and 200 billion naira in each of the 3 auctions, making the bond an integral part of the overall program. Looking at all of this, similarly, the federal government made mention of the 18.5% FGN February 2031 bond with a tenure of 6 years and 1 month as of January 2025 will also be to reopen and offer within the same range of 150 billion naira to 200 billion naira per auction. The federal government actually made all of this known. And then talking about this debt servicing and also infrastructure, the government is looking to generate these funds from this month of January, February and March. 150 million naira auction from the debt Eurobond market. So this is an avenue to help with the current budget of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Talking about servicing and all of that, the presidency has said they'll be able to pay $10 billion to Nigerian debt servicing from the monies that have been saved up from subsidy removal, because I know most of you all have questions on what has the money been used for. So that the government is saying the money generated from subsidy removal, now that has been saved up, they are going to be servicing the debt of Nigeria to about $10 billion. So with that now, those that have been projecting, saying that they are owing international communities, will be able to take those statements off their lips, as the governments have made plans, and plans are in place to make these payments done. They're looking at the Eurobond market. This is actually going to be a very, very good investment. This is one of the safest and securest way to invest in Nigeria, and this is also going to open more room for foreign investors to come in. So if the government can be able to generate this from the first quarter of 2025, then infrastructure and then job creation would be something that the government would pay more attention to. So moving away from that, the federal government saying this has to do with the current rumors going around town that the fuel price would be increased. So the federal government have this to say. The Minister of State for Petroleum Resource and Oil, Heineken, says that the price of crude oil in the international market remains a major force in driving the fluctuation in pump price of petrol. He says that the downstream sector is now fully deregulated, with the government no longer involved in setting prices. The minister says this at the inaugural meeting of the Petroleum Industry Stakeholders Forum a couple of days ago, where he have made mention of the fact that there have been fresh concerns over potential increase in pump price of petrol after the cost of crude oil in the global market crossed $80 per barrel. You know, just if you remember, on Monday, private depots made mention of planning to increase the loading cost of petrol and other refined products from 900 to 950 naira per litre. However, at the meeting, alleged fears over the imminent rise in the price of petrol, noting it's not going to be immediate. According to him, the government is now more interested in quality control, as petrol prices are not controlled or pre-directed by an individual but by the market force. Looking at this challenge now, Crude for Naira initiative is actually an avenue for Nigerian Naira to be able to rebound and then be able to be stabilized. That's the main reason why the Crude for Naira initiative was initiated by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in the month of October, 1st of October 2024. Now, we are witnessing a significant increase in the global market, and there is a global challenge going on that has actually made the current price of crude oil per barrel to get to $80. It was at $77 per barrel. Now it's above $80. So now automatically that has impacted the market locally. Here in Nigeria too, is also impacting it negatively. That's why we are witnessing private depots talking about increasing the price of the offtake of products from their depots from 950 naira to 950 naira rather. So if this does happen now, this projection, the government is saying their hands are off and they are more concerned on what is actually going to the market, what Nigerians are buying, not also making mention of the prices. But Fed needs to step in and then look at the regulation and also know how they would be able to have this avenue for prices to be cushioned, and then should have the proper regulation for prices. Now, with this current and recent development, fuel price is about to go back to 1,020 naira to 1,920 naira, depending on the petrol station you are buying. But this marketers have actually made mention of the fact that definitely the price is going to go up, but it's not going to be immediate. So they're actually kind of telling Nigerians to brace up. But now Nigerians are calling on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to find a way around this current situation, because the economy is actually not happy with Nigerians, and Nigerians are not happy with the economy, and their food items are obviously still on the rise. And currently inflation is at 34.80%. Food inflation alone is at 40%, which is a major key driver of the Nigerian inflation. So this has been a challenge. Cost of goods items is not coming down, and then transportation on the other hand is also not coming down. Now marketers are saying they would hike the price. So what does this mean for Nigerians at large? That is a very big question that Nigerians are expecting the Minister of Petroleum and also the NNPC and the number one citizen in this country, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to answer. Moving away from that, let's have a conversation where the World Bank projects the Nigerian economy, or GDP rather, is going to grow by 3.5% for December 2025. The World Bank has forecasted the current Nigerian growth for it to hit a margin of 3.5% before the close of the year. So this is actually looking the same almost because of what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu have said in his billing budget rather for the year, that is looking to increase the growth and GDP of Nigeria. But if inflation doesn't come down, the cost of items doesn't come down, food items to be more specific, and if there's no more production, then there's a challenge. Now, the World Bank is saying with the policies of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the tax reforms that is still that the present committee chairperson of the Committee on Tax Reform is looking for it to come in at least in the first quarter of this year. If all of those reforms don't come into place, and then the World Bank are saying with those reforms it's going to take Nigeria 10 to 15 years. Now, they said before the close of this year we're expecting to see a 3.5% growth in the GDP, and then in the coming year we're expected to see a 3.7%, that's in the year 2026. This is what the forecast has been, by the World Bank. But Nigerians have argued differently, that the World Bank can't just be forecasting, though the World Bank tends to do that a lot for other countries. But they said there are actually measures that Nigerians can take that would help the economy grow way faster and higher than what the World Bank is projecting. So I'm certain the NDS, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his team, economic team, are actually doing what they can do to be able to see this. But tightening the monetary policy more by World Bank and by the CBN, the World Bank said that is a very good initiative that would help curb out inflation. But Nigerians have argued, and analysts have argued differently, that they said lots of production is actually going to help curb out inflation. We've seen Dangote refinery in place, Warri refinery, now we're hearing that the Kaduna refinery is also coming into place. By then, we are hoping to have lots of surplus of premium motor spirit and other refined products locally here in Nigeria. If that does happen, we will be able to see how these angles will be taken care of, and then inflation is going to drop down on its own gradually. This is how much time will permit us to take on today's edition of Business Point. My name is Samuel Odi. I'll see you again as we talk more business. Bye for now.